Hi, this is Dominic Pace, who plays Gecko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian, and you are listening to What a Piece of Junk podcast.
Hello, Space Junkies. How's everyone doing this week? We want to welcome you to the What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. What a Piece of Junk is the podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network dedicated to covering everything Star Wars, from the original Star Wars trilogy movies to the prequels to Legends canon. Disney's acquisition of Star Wars and its products and all the fan favorite content out there, we have you covered. So please make sure to stop on over to your local cantina, grab a drink, cozy on up to your favorite alien or droid, and get ready to talk Star Wars. Derek, the ship seems a bit empty today. Something's missing.
Yeah, Scott's not with us today. Apparently he's either going to Endor or Kashyyyk because he was looking for a house in the trees. Or no, wait. It's a tree in his house. That's what it was. Okay. Yes. That's
tree
what
house.
it was. Yeah.
My name is Nathan Miracle, of course, and Scott Baltman is missing today. He decided to get a tree house, but failed to realize that trying to put a tree into your house will actually do some major damage to your roof.
Unfortunately.
Dealing with some storm damage today and won't be able to join us.
So you've got the original Captain Derek Marsh and the co-pilot Gooey Chewy Nathan Miracle on today. So, and if you guys haven't noticed,
promoted to actual pilot.
Yes, you are. That's awesome. So, and if you guys didn't know, that's the first time Nathan's done the initial intro. So awesome job. We've kind of been breaking them in more and more. And again, all the feedback from the listeners out there and the Space Junkies giving the feedback to the team. Sounds like Nathan was a great addition. So Nathan, again, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate you having on the team. So on the Drunken Gungan.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really enjoying it.
Good deal. So how you been, Nathan? We know Scott's been out of commission for the past couple of weeks due to, as you said, repairing his house now. But how have you been?
Well, I've been doing better than Scott. Still adjusting to working from home, which has now become a more long-term thing for me. My employer said that we're not going back into the office for the indefinite future. They're doing some rework of how our desks are going to be, and going into work is just not a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of, foreseeing that's what a lot of businesses are going to do, because just imagine how much money, and we've kind of had this conversation before, how much money your company has to spend on a floor downtown Charlotte, right? With all that money and stuff. And at the end of the day, if you could just work from home and do the same adequate amount of work, maybe even do more, because theoretically you're not having to spend time trying to drive downtown, deal with traffic. You're not distracted with going up to the water cooler, and chit-chatting with your coworkers, and just focus on your day-to-day tasks for the day. You probably get it done quicker throughout the day when you can. Now, I know you have, kind of cover from 9 to 5 basically with the way your position is. But, at the end of the day, though, if it's more efficient and it doesn't cost them the overhead, I could see a lot of companies, going that route rather than companies, continuing with, sinking in that overhead cost.
Yeah, and I'm finding it a bit of a mixed bag. There are some things that are easier from home, and there are some things that are a little bit harder. But I guess that's to be expected, and it all evens out in the end. So I can still get stuff done. So how about you, Derek? How have you been doing?
Been good. Just finished up, last time we talked, I had finished up my second stint to New Jersey I had to fly to. Was looking at possibly traveling again, but due to my home situation with my wife working retail, I'm not able to cover the weekends right now if they need me to go somewhere. just because I have to watch Sophia. So I got my supervisor called me Thursday afternoon. He's like, man, I need you to go up. We got the start up in Michigan, which is like a 5.5, 6 hour drive for me. No big deal. I wouldn't have to fly even, which was nice. And I'm like, okay, when we thinking of going, he's like, I need you to go tonight. I'm like, I'm like, I don't think that can happen. He's like, yeah, they got, they're, because the business is basically a startup, and they finally got the new building where they were at, because this company that we're doing business with, they're basically the third-party logistics company that we're providing the service for them. Like I said, they just got the building where they're actually going to be operating their warehouse out of, their distribution center. And, we got all this work to do now, and it's just like, I can't go. So sorry. So he actually had to fly out the other day and was handling it. So I'm like, okay, well, thanks for covering. So, but yeah, just current times with the little one, not able to do it. So, but I'm just like you, man. Working from home, I was already doing it 50% of the time anyways. I mean, sometimes I go into my local office, depending on what I needed to do. But a lot of times I just work from home when I'm not traveling. And with me very limited traveling right now, other than these emergency startup issues that we might have, everything's going virtual, and I'm doing, WebExes, training, conferences, obviously, team meetings through Microsoft. I mean, that's starting to come through with my company. We're starting to use Zoom like we're doing, here at the recording. But yeah, just all over the place, just trying to hit everything I can. But, I get my stuff done. Some days I work till 6, 7 o'clock. Most days I'm done by 5. And then some days, like yesterday, I got done by 3:30, and I went out and got my shopping done before I had to go pick up Sophia from daycare.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, the pandemic is not stopping Disney or Lucasfilm or some related companies from getting some stuff done. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later today. But Derek, can you tell people where they can find us and where they can find you on the internet?
Sure. Well, first off, let's set up the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find us on the fpnet.podbean.com master feed. You can obviously download the Podbean app. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. Then you can find us on the What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast Facebook group, where that's mainly you can get a hold of me also under my real name, Derek Marsh. You can email whatapieceofjunkpod@gmail.com. Direct Twitter is @WhatWars. Scott runs that. You can also find me on Twitter at HoodieDM83. And then Instagram is Fandom Podcast Network, and Kyle runs that when he has stuff to post. So, Nathan, where can the Space Junkies find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my real name. That's Nathan Miracle. You can also find me on Twitter at Gooey Chewy, GOOEYCHEWIE. And remember, you can find us on Apple Podcasts now. And we love for people to find us under the Fandom Podcast Network and leave us reviews. We want you to be honest, but let's be honest. We love 5-star reviews because that helps people find us, and we don't want to upset the Wookiee.
Yes, we got to keep those Wookiee children fed, and we don't want anybody's arms missing. So.
Absolutely not. Because having your arms missing would make it really hard to wear a T-shirt.
Yes, it would.
Well, why, that reminds me. Your favorite segment of the show.
It is. Well, first off, you can support us by going over to TeePublic Store and search for the Fandom Podcast Network. Find us on What a Piece of Junk Podcast. Again, it's not just T-shirts, though. It's all sorts of other apparel, coffee mugs, totes. They got masks, obviously, and they run, sales from time to time. So look for that stuff over at TeePublic Store. But yeah, let's talk about, Nathan, what shirts we got on this week. So, I know that I talked, several months ago, I finally got my first, or well, not my first, but my shipment that I've been waiting on from Turtle Tea, because they always run their 50% off graphic tees from time to time. And, they catch you with all these cool little mixture things. So I had bought 3 shirts, and I got another set of 3 in, but that'll be next show that I'll start revealing those shirts. But this one is my 3rd one from the set, and I'll show it to you.
Very nice. What I'm seeing now is a chibi baby Yoda.
Yes, and if you didn't catch it, he's got his little cup of soup.
Well, that is just excellent.
So, yeah. Yeah, so I got and I actually, it was funny. I had to run to Kroger yesterday, like I said, when I got off at 3:30 before I picked up Sophia, and I was wearing my other one with the Baby Yoda in my. Looks like I'm wearing a shirt pocket, and he's popping out of my shirt pocket, and like two people at Kroger were commenting like, "Oh, I love your shirt," because everybody loves Baby Yoda.
Well, that is quite a coincidence because the T-shirt that I'm wearing today has a shirt pocket with Baby Yoda
Oh,
popping
that's
out of it.
hilarious.
I don't believe it's the same design. Mine is more of a photo of Baby Yoda, and the pocket is not real at all. It's just printed on. But yeah, Baby Yoda's peeking out and looking down, see what he can see. Maybe there's some frogs. Remember, Baby Yoda doesn't actually like chicken nuggets. They don't have enough bones.
Yes, but I bet he would eat a whole chicken though, because that has bones.
That's true. Um, at least it will be once he gets big enough. He can
So
start off.
space chickens. So yeah, maybe that's what actual Yoda was looking for when he ran into Luke to see if he brought any KFC with him.
Yep. Like, how do you get so big eating food of this kind? It has no bones.
Yes, so.
That's the problem.
Yeah, so our favorite part of the show, and it's actually kind of sad and ironic as we talk about T-shirts. We'll talk a little bit about swag here in a little bit, because typically we have Scott go and run over to the bartender and get some scuttlebutt news, but this time we actually had him shuttle it over to us from deep space. Sent us his information. Had to get it out of Morse code because that's all he could do, since he obviously was dealing with a hole in his roof. So we got some news to talk about. First off, we got obviously this week or weekend, as we're recording on 8/29, would have been Celebration weekend at Anaheim for Star Wars, and obviously due to COVID impacts that got canceled. But Nathan, why don't you tell us a little about some of the cool swag that we can still possibly get out there?
Yes, so Star Wars Celebration has put some nice T-shirts and some other memorabilia up on their website. There's a lot of stuff celebrating the 40th anniversary for Empire Strikes Back. And there's a few T-shirts as well that celebrate The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker. They've got some photos on them. There's a BB-8 avocado T-shirt. I believe that's because this was going to be celebration in Anaheim, and avocados are a big crop out there in California. So I've got a T-shirt that has a pizza delivery, Millennium Falcon pizza delivery on it from Chicago. The reason they have that was because it's Chicago. They're famous for pizza. So I think this is their kind of homage to the location for this celebration. There's some other cool stuff. There's a Geeky Tiki AT-AT Punch Bowl. If you were at Celebration Chicago, they had some Geeky Tiki Star Wars character punch glasses. So this would be a great thing to go along with that. There's a Minox suction cup plushie, as well as a Tauntaun plushie with a removable Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's a few other things that I'll let people check out on their own. You cannot buy any of this right now unless you had a pass to Celebration. If you did have a pass to Celebration, you can go buy things right now. Otherwise, you'll need to wait until 12 noon Eastern Time on Monday, August 31st, and that's when you'll be able to make these purchases. So I know exactly what I'm going to be doing during lunch on Monday.
If there's anything left, because let's be honest, I'm sure there's quite a few folks that were going to go that obviously didn't get to go this year. So they've got that extra cash, that they weren't going to spend on, VIP photos or other merchandise things at the booth.
Plane tickets.
Yeah, or even plane tickets and hotel costs. So they're going to have that extra money. And then I know some folks won't anyways because they might have fallen on hard times. A lot of people are still furloughed, unfortunately, stuff like that. But I bet a lot of that stuff is going to be sold out. But maybe they were smart enough and they went ahead and printed up extra stuff because they knew a month plus before that they were going to unfortunately cancel this year. So you would think that they would want to capitalize on everything they can possibly do to make up for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like I said, 12 noon Might even go to lunch a few minutes early just so I can be
Log in.
refreshing the page so I
Uh,
can put that in my cart.
it does not make me appreciate that because that's like, how they used to do Gen Con, freaking hotel rooms and stuff. And at least they have a lottery system with that. So not that we have to go to Gen Con again this year, as we talked about last
Yeah.
time. Doop, doop, doop. So, but you did mention too, with the Emmy Award nominations and stuff, don't forget folks, it's 3 weeks. Basically September 20th. So, let's hopefully we'll get some cool news to talk about, the Mandalorian winning some Emmys.
And absolutely deservingly so, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Not
we're a
that
little
that's any
biased, but
competition.
we could take the bias glasses off and, talk about that. So,
Mhm.
but speaking of, Disney Plus streaming series, we've got a couple of updates for a Cassian Andor series. So we know that they actually had started filming a little bit right before COVID, and then got shut down. And so then they kept delaying it. And obviously, we all know what the Obi-Wan Kenobi series was going to, and now they're rewriting that entire thing. But Cassian Andor is basically ready to start shooting. So we got a couple of updates for that. First off, this is a rumor though, but they are rumored to actually start filming in November.
So
So
not too long from now,
yeah.
and presumably still under COVID conditions.
Well, I'm wondering if they're just going to do the same thing, prior to us even knowing it through the Disney Gallery episode. But, with that technology dome that they have, I mean, again, they can go anywhere theoretically with the way they shoot it for that series.
You're absolutely right. That's something that we have talked about a little bit on this podcast, how you don't actually need that many people when you don't have to go out on set. You can just, or go out to location rather. You can just film in the one room with the thousands of LEDs, however many that there were, and you don't need much more than cameraman and whoever's in the scene. And
Well, and the good thing too
presumably
is
the
that it would
director.
isolate it too, right? So
Mhm.
you could kind of because I mean they do this a lot in Hollywood and anyways when they're doing these shoots that they bring these people in for couple of months straight, right, while they're doing all this, especially the people that have a pretty much appearing in every episode and they have to go and shoot everything. But they could basically self-isolate themselves with the group, right? The person comes in, they take their temperature, all that stuff before they come in, and then they basically just stay on quote unquote Hollywood campus, right? They don't leave, they don't do anything for those 2-3 months. And then the few people that have to come in from time to time, for cameo shoots or anything that need to come in, they obviously come in, but then they have their precautions and all that stuff. So that way the folks that like I said are coming in and out is sporadic enough that it shouldn't make an impact and potentially expose anyone to the virus, unfortunately. So, but I think that's how it's going to have to be. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm excited for this series. The other news we got to update, Space Junkies, is that we finally have an official female lead that's going to be co-starring opposite Diego Luna. It's going to be Adria Arjona. Some of you may know her. She played in the most recently, she was in the Netflix movie called Six Underground. She played the character Five. I haven't watched it, but Six Underground was a Ryan Reynolds movie, I guess, where he's a tech billionaire, fakes his death, and then puts like an elite team together to go on these missions and stuff like that. So it sounds like a fun movie, but just haven't had a chance to watch that. She is coming up in the she's going to be playing Martin Bancroft in the new Morbius, the vampire MCU Spider-Verse movie that's coming out.
Oh, nice.
So she's in that. But then I knew her when I saw the name at first. I couldn't place it, but once I saw her picture and then looked up IMDb, I was like, oh yeah, now I know, because she is played Anathema Device from the Good Omens TV miniseries from Amazon, which was really good. It was a good rendition of the book that had she played the basically the witch. I don't say the witch's great granddaughter who came up with the foretelling of everything that was going to be happening. But obviously, I thought it was a great thing with David Tennant and Michael Sheen. So, but yeah, definitely Adria Arjona. We have a lead actress now that's going to be playing opposite of Diego Luna. So, do you think, Nathan, that she'll be a love interest or maybe a sister, as she's a Hispanic, descent?
I think sister is probably more likely than love interest. If she's a love interest, then when we get to Rogue One, we don't see her there, obviously. So she'd have to be written out of the story somehow.
Correct.
If you were a love interest. I don't know that they'd want to introduce her as a love interest and then have to somehow, you have to tie that up by the end. Whereas if she's a sister or some other relative, then she could just, not be there at that time.
Yeah.
And then they could carry on and have her appear in other material later.
Yep. I mean, I shouldn't say she doesn't have to be either of those two. I mean, she could just be part of the gang, right? From his hometown, childhood friend type deal that they grow up together, just like we had Kira and Han Solo, right?
Right.
That end up together. So it could be kind of the same thing, similar. I'd expect her to be the sister, because I think, she might, I don't think she's young, so I don't think she'd be the older sister. I think she'd probably be a younger sister to Diego's character, obviously Cassian. But I definitely see that, something, they could play that off again, where he talked about, him being part of the, part of the war since he was 6 years old. Right.
Right.
Obviously she's not going to die that early because she's an adult. So they have to film her as the character. So she's not going to die that early, but again, she could have some impact, that way as well too.
Yeah, but they could definitely play it up to where, okay, at age 6, he runs into circumstances where he needs to support the rebellion or join the rebellion or at least run from the Empire. And, he may be, carrying his sister in tow when that happens. There's a good chance that his parents were killed. Very common, Luke's parents were killed.
Or Din's parents, right?
Or so he thinks. Then his uncle and aunt were killed.
Yep. You either get your hand cut off or you lose your parents or both.
Yep.
So, but yeah, definitely. Like I said, she's a good actress. So up and coming. So excited to have her part of the story team. So, and part of the Star Wars universe now. So excellent. So, and I'm really excited for it. I know a lot of people, are bitching because they're doing a character prequel of a character that we know basically dies. But I'm like, all the characters die. So we know Vader dies. Yeah. We know we still got prequels, right? And we know, at this point Luke dies, but it doesn't mean we still don't care about him, right? Like I'm still going to watch episode 4, 5, and 6 a gazillion times.
In some ways, knowing the eventual fate of the character can actually enhance the story. Much of the prequels wouldn't hit home the way it does if you didn't already know that Anakin was going to become Vader.
Absolutely.
And when you get into Clone Wars, there's some scenes, like if you watch the Mortis trilogy, and Anakin sees a vision of the future and then has his mind wiped so he doesn't remember it. That scene makes absolutely no sense if you don't know that he's going to become Vader.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, after you see it, and then if you were to watch, actually watch it in sequential order, then you're like, oh, that's all foreshadowing. But yeah, like you said, but it doesn't really hit as hard, right? Until you've seen it kind of backwards, right? And then watch kind of his spiral downfall. But that's what people want. I mean, like I said, just because I thought Cassian Andor was the best character out of that, with K2SO besides, Chirrut and Baze. So, I mean, I like Jyn Erso, and I like to see, I would have thought they would have capitalized on, doing her as a young kind of teenager being raised up by Saw Gerrera, and actually, again, bring back Forrest Whitaker. I thought they would have capitalized on that character, but I mean, Cassian Andor definitely was the most gripping, especially like I said when he reveals like how much dirty stuff he's had to do for the rebellion in order to try and overthrow the Empire.
Yeah, and this character, whoever Adria ends up playing, might help inform how Cassian views Jin. If this is somebody that Cassian ends up losing to the Empire later in the series, that influences how he might interact with Jin and how we see those interactions.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. Maybe she's the one that got away, and for whatever reason, right? He was his friend or her friend, and whatever, and then she goes off on her own, or she dies, or whatever, and he never really tells her how he feels, and then that's how what you get to see at the end of, as they're looking upon the Death Star laser beam hitting Scarif. So, and like you said, that's how he treats Jin, early on he does that, but then he warms up to her, right? So.
Yeah, the best twists in stories aren't the ones that make you go, hey, this story has been telling me the wrong thing this whole time. The best twists in stories are the ones that make you go, oh,
I didn't see that coming.
This in a different light.
Yeah.
Not that I've been lied to, but now I understand the reasoning better.
It's all from a certain point of view.
Yep, and this prequel could really help us see Rogue One in a different light. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I still think Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie to come out since the original trilogy movies. So I love it. I think a lot of people, that are quote unquote OG hardcore fans love it the most too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I enjoyed Solo, but I think Rogue One is overall a better movie, and I enjoyed both of them more than the sequel trilogy as a whole. So
yeah, I think Solo is the next one after that too. I agree with you. I think I'm still hoping. I mean, there's enough clamor. We talked about this, obviously a couple months ago, with Star Wars Day that we were talking about, people wanting to get a Solo 2 movie, or at least at this point, give us a series.
Yeah, a series would be great. And it doesn't really even have to be a direct sequel to Solo. It could be a spin-off. Have Lando Calrissian be the main character.
Yeah, Donald Glover is phenomenal, man.
Absolutely.
And he's done plenty of TV work. And recently, too, after he even had Lando, he's got his ATL series, that he had and all that stuff. So definitely, and at this point, like I said, I think series, especially streaming series, have taken over to where people, again, look at it a different light. And when you can be part of these franchises or these intellectual properties like Star Wars or the MCU, I mean, especially if it's a person that's already an established actor or actress, and then they come in, this takes them to a whole nother level, I think. I think for people that I kind of see that where this is a difference, for those that are kind of introduced through Star Wars, maybe they've done a couple of small things, right? That's where they might have seen some of their earlier work and stuff like that. But if you look at any of the main ones prior to their big Star Wars breakout movie as kind of their big leading role, they don't do so well afterwards, right? So you look at Daisy Ridley or John Boyega or even I'm trying to think of her name, who played Tico, Rose Tico. But like you don't hardly ever see them afterwards, right? Like they may get some stuff. I mean, I even posted up an article today on the Facebook chat that Daisy Ridley hasn't found any work or is having very difficulty up till about a month ago finding any work after Star Wars. She thought she was going to get all this stuff after the Rise of Skywalker, and she got nothing. She had no phone calls for several months, and she even went out and did auditions and never got back. She's finally doing some voice actressing, but hasn't gotten anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of a long tradition in Star Wars. If you look at the original trilogy, outside of Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher didn't have just absolute superstar careers. Carrie Fisher appeared in several other movies. Mark Hamill ended up doing more voice acting than actual appearances. Of course, part of that was due to a car wreck that kind of messed up his face. But
yep.
And he was already Luke Skywalker at that point, so they couldn't just recast Luke, but that's why the Wampa attack happens in Empire Strikes Back, to give an in-universe reason why that happens. But Harrison Ford was the only one to actually go on to be just a really big movie
mega star.
Mhm.
Well, and then he technically had 2 breakout movies prior to that too. So, again, those didn't put him on the. It solidified him, but it didn't initially put him on the map, right?
Yeah.
While everybody else, I mean, pretty much, you're absolutely right. It's kind of the same thing with you look at the prequel, right? Liam Neeson, obviously well established before Star Wars. Ewan
Right.
McGregor was already up and coming with a couple of great movies prior to Star Wars. But then you look at Hayden Christensen, nothing, and then he did that. And Natalie Portman was already, she already had several movies out. I mean, she was, an actress since she was 12 or whatever, with The Assassin.
She is the one
the professional
or actress who, but even I, back in 1999 as a 15-year-old kid, even I had heard of Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was much bigger before Star Wars.
Yeah. And then you look at everybody else, like obviously Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, he was obviously well established beforehand.
Kind of loaded themselves with known actors and actresses.
Yeah, and then surprisingly, obviously, the only one that really, but she wasn't a main character, other than she appeared in the first movie, was Keira Knightley. And then she really only had, for the most part, she had a couple of movies in between. Obviously, she had, the Pirates of the Caribbean. But I haven't seen her really much do anything after that either, though. Now again, a lot of these people make their money, right, and then they duck out and just live their lives and in luxury for the rest of their life because they can make plenty of money off royalties
And showing up at things like Celebration.
Yeah, for some of them,
signing autographs.
Yeah,
because autographs are not cheap.
No, not anymore. So 10 years ago they were like a quarter of a price, but think about where they were at 20, 30 years ago. I mean, I remember used to be able to get superstars for basketball for $5 a signature. Now they charge you over $100 for a signature, and it's like, come on, guys. So
the most I've spent for a signature so far is $80, and that was Patrick Stewart.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask if it was one of the main cast from Star Trek. I was gonna guess either Jean-Luc Picard or Kirk himself.
It was Jean-Luc Picard. I can't afford Kirk. I think he charges triple digits now.
Yeah, Shatner's like $200, and that's if you're even lucky to get time with him anymore. He only appears the big ones, and that's it. And he lives like maybe 45 minutes from me. Kind of crazy. But not like I go over to his house or anything like that. I mean, Shatner and I aren't that tight.
No, I do have Jonas's autograph on a Chewbacca figure, which is cool because I've got Peter Mayhew's autograph on it as well.
Okay, the same figure? Same
figure.
Cool.
Jonas gave me a bit of a hard time because I asked him if he could sign underneath Peter Mayhew's signature. It's like, oh, I see. You're being difficult now.
Just take my money and sign the autograph.
he was great, though.
No. I'm sure he's just being rough, But
yeah, but neither one of them was as expensive as Sir Patrick Stewart.
Well, that's where I was very interested in. I had mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned to you, Nathan, or not. This might have been prior to you joining us on the crew, that Lexicon, the one here at Lexington, Kentucky, was going to have some Star Wars people up here, and some of the main people, they were going to have Warwick Davis. I was like, okay, cool. But he was going to charge $100. And I'm like, $100? I'm like, his stuff online you can get for $60. Why would I pay $100?
Yeah. Of course, part of it is, the luxury of, having them sign it right in front of you, and it was them.
Yeah. Well, I guess theoretically it would have been cool to actually have the picture with him, right? But at the same time, it's like, man, that's just a lot of money for a meet and greet, a quick VIP, and that wasn't even VIP. That was just a quick meet and greet, picture and autograph, right? And then Ahsoka Tano herself, Ashley Eckstein, was going to be there. And I was going to do that one because I think she was only $60.
Yeah, usually the voice actors are not quite as expensive.
Yeah, she was either 50 or 60. But actually, I really was just going to see if I could get her to do like a 5-second bumper for us. So
Oh, that'd be awesome.
be like, here's my money. I don't need an autograph, but can you just do this quick bumper? So
Yeah,
So-
well, if I can go to Celebration in next time they have it, which I think they've rescheduled it for 2022 or
yeah, they're not even doing one next year because as we talked about, D20 not is it D23 is going to be this, like the same, like within a month span of when Star Wars Celebration would have been timed. I think those, and they just basically said, well, we don't want to do it back to back, and I think D23 is going to be in Anaheim next year, anyways. So that was going to be
that'd be
really
even worse.
silly. Yeah.
Well,
So-
hopefully we can get some bumpers in 2022.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get some before then too.
Yeah. Well, we'll,
Yeah,
we'll continue to push and try to get some more interviews with folks too. I mean, we've had some, obviously great people like, Eric Walker and Dominic Pace that have come on. So
Yeah. Now at Celebration, the pictures are done separately from the signatures. So I actually did get a picture with Ashley Eckstein and D. Bradley Baker at the same time.
nice.
And I was dressed as Dave Filoni at the time, so it was awesome. I walked in, and they immediately said, "Oh gosh, hey Dave, it's so good to be working with you again."
That is awesome. So, yeah, that'll be. Well, are you still trying to put together a Trapper Wolf?
Still trying to. I'm basically going to have to purchase a bunch of the stuff that I was hoping to actually make, but it's still on.
Yeah,
the
it's not
docket.
super easy to make a Rebel flight suit from scratch unless if you
Yeah.
could, sew and stitch.
Yeah, I found a sewing pattern, and I was going to get. My mom actually does a lot of sewing,
Okay.
so I was going to get her to help me with it. But my dad retired this past school year. He was a teacher, and they moved to Tennessee, and I'm in North Carolina. You're in Kentucky. They're about halfway between us, but it's a little far to try to, just pop up for a day and be like, "Hey, can we, make a Rebel flight suit?"
Well, you graduated from Tennessee, University of Tennessee, right?
No, my father graduated from there.
Okay, your father graduated from there, and you just obviously are a fan from, since your father is.
I'm a fan. I was born in UT Hospital, so been a fan from birth.
Bleed orange from day one.
Yes, and well, I know we may not have the largest crossover of college football fans and Star Wars fans, but for any of you who know, Tennessee's been doing a lot of bleeding in college football for the past decade or so.
I root for them out of the SEC. So, I mean, with me living in Kentucky now, I mean, they're actually, part of, the rivalry in the SEC there. So, I always root for them. So, and I have to root for Kentucky too, but root for them.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff. But yeah.
All right. Well, moving back to Star Wars.
Yes. I wonder if they have Star Wars football and what they would call it. Maybe actually call it like handball because, football has hardly any actual foot involved. Anyways.
Well, there is a scene in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan goes into the cantina after Zam Wesell, where some people are around, a table and they're watching something that looks similar to football, but it's droids playing it. So maybe their concussion protocols got to the point where it said only droids can play.
Because droid lives don't matter, because we've already had this with L3 talking about it, right?
But,
She gives the whole
this is
spiel.
before L3. So
She gives a whole spiel on this. So, yep. So, see, it all comes back together, right, guys? So, well, we're going to take a quick break, team. Space Junkies out there, we appreciate you listening. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about what's next with the Star Wars movies.
Hi, this is Delilah S. Dawson and her current cold virus, and you are listening to What a Piece of Junk podcast.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to our other awesome shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a whole year in movies. The End Zone, our NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. The Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 1980s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast, and our newest show, Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The FPNet can also be found on the Podbean app. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and now iHeartRadio. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Hi, this is Eric Walker, the original Mace, the OM in the universe. Sorry, Sam Jackson. And you're listening to What a Piece of Junk podcast.
All right. Thanks, Kevin, for letting us know what you can find on the Fandom Podcast Network. Folks, we do this out of the love and passion for these shows, intellectual properties, movies, whatever we're talking about on here. We're doing it because we love it. So again, if you're interested in any of those IPs, I encourage you to go download them. And give a listen, because you're going to have a fun time, just like Nathan and I are hanging out today talking about Star Wars. Hope you guys are having a little bit of smiles when we're laughing here, cracking up with some jokes, and having a good time. So, Nathan, do you listen to any of the other Fandom Podcast Network shows? Not to put you on the spotlight.
I, of course, listen to all of the Fandom Podcast Network shows, as everyone should. Just don't quiz me on them.
Yeah. What's the type Doctor Who one, right? Type 4, 40. So
yeah,
there you go.
that one.
Yep,
yeah.
There you go. So, well, just again, you don't have to listen to all of them. I try to support the ones I do a little bit. There's obviously the crew that does the Star Trek, Union Federation one's good times. Obviously the guys at Culture Clash, Kevin and Kyle, always like listening to them. And then my good buddy Adam P. O'Brien. Listen to some of his podcasts for Lethal Mullet, and we chit chat. So shout out to Adam there. We haven't chatted in a while, bud. We need to catch up. So, anyways,
I do enjoy seeing the Lethal Mullet in other movies and whatnot. Occasionally, those show up on the Fandom Podcast Network Facebook page.
Yes, he does. He does like photoshopping himself into. He does make a pretty good Thor.
See, and here I thought Iron Man was the best one of those.
Oh, you like the Iron Man one? That was pretty good too.
Yeah.
But anyways, Space Junkies, as we referenced a little bit before the break, we were going to talk a little bit about what the next Star Wars movie information we have, and we learned a little bit about the movie. We know it's, at least at this point in time, it's still not tentative to come out until December 2022, and obviously they have, at this point started filming, because I'm sure that that'll hit the internet, and we'll break that news to you guys here on the podcast. But from what we have is the Wrap did a interview with Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy, and we think we got again, you could take it for a grain of salt. People may be looking a little too deep into some stuff, but I think we got a little bit of information of when the next Star Wars movie is going to take place. Nathan, what before we talk about what we think Kathleen Kennedy implied, again, what are you hoping that the next Star Wars movie is, timeline, or where it's taking place, or maybe even what it's about, or what it's going to cover? What are you hoping for?
Well, there's a lot of possibilities here. Of course, the sequel trilogy happened several years after the original trilogy, and we don't know all that much about what happened between the two. We've got some information. We're getting some more information with the Star Wars Squadrons video game that's coming out, which there's another video game that we have to tell you about a little bit later in our podcast. That's probably the time period I'm most interested in. That's also the time period that The Mandalorian takes place in. So I'm not sure if they're going to go with movies to cover that, or if they're going to go with more alternative media like the video game like the streaming services. But that is the period I'm most interested in right now. Of course, I love anything Clone Wars, so if they did some ancillary Clone Wars stuff, I'd be all in for that as well.
Well, we definitely know we're getting the Bad Batch series, so we're getting some more. But again, that is post, or when the Empire's in place, right? So it's post Clone Wars, but it's obviously pre-sequel stuff, pre-Mandalorian and all that.
Yeah, which there's a lot of stories to tell in there too. But all of these stories from Phantom Menace all the way through Rise of Skywalker take place in about a 40-year period. And I hear there's some other years in there, some other stories.
Really?
So,
Really?
Yeah, apparently, just a few. So what did Miss Kennedy have to say about that?
Well, it's kind of funny the way they wrote the article. It almost made it sound like she was surprised. As you talked about, it kind of spans 40 some odd years. But we obviously know that the actual mythology and the Star Wars universe itself expands over about 25,000 years.
That's only slightly different.
Yeah, only slightly. But she definitely mentioned that she's been paying close attention to keeping an eye on the older past stuff, like saying maybe 4,000 years before the Phantom Menace, or as we talked about, maybe something even not quite, but maybe 600 years, which is what they recently talked about with the High Republic. So I have a inclination that I think it's going to be High Republic, but again, if Disney wants to do what the fans are asking for, they would best to be doing the Knights of the, or at least the Old Republic, I should say. But to do something in the timeline of the Knights of the Old Republic would just make every fan's head explode.
Now, see, it's very interesting to me that fans are so excited about Knights of the Old Republic and things set in that time period, but then at the same breath will say, well, why do we care about the Cassian Andor series when we know what's going to happen to him? We know what's going to happen to the Old Republic. Eventually, it's going to give way to the Empire.
Yes.
We just need to figure out all the things that happen in between times.
Well, you skipped that first, because actually it really is the Old Republic, then the High Republic, then the Grand Republic, then the Empire, then the First Order. Well, actually goes to Empire, then it goes the new Grand Republic, right? Because isn't that what they call it? And then it becomes the First Order, and then I don't know what they're calling it after they've toppled the First Order. But really, I don't think that answered the question in the end of Rise of Skywalker. Like, again, they blew up a bunch of ships, but the Resistance is still out there. Like, really, that was more Empire than anything, right?
Yeah, they never answered that question in Return of the Jedi either. We went decades without knowing what actually happened after the second Death Star blew up.
Yeah, correct.
Or I should say we went about a decade before we got some stuff that is now decanonized.
Yeah. It did take a while before the expanded universe came out of what they were doing. So, or Legends as they call it now. So, but yeah, definitely. I'm kind of on the boat. Scott always says, "Hey, I'll take any Star Wars. New Star Wars is better than no Star Wars." I'm agree with that for the most part, right? I'm still haven't really found anything to really stomach the Resistance, but trying to watch that show, but outside of that, so.
Well, the Resistance show, you have to watch it with the mindset of
a 7-year-old.
This was actually made for kids. And Star Wars itself, a lot of people will say that about Star Wars, that the whole franchise was made for kids, but the Resistance cartoon in particular was aimed at a younger audience, younger even than the Rebels, and definitely younger than the Clone Wars was aimed for.
Yeah, I definitely. Well, I will say that. Clone Wars so much, but I think Rebels was actually quite developed for a more mature audience. Even though it was on Disney XD, and even though it was, it's a cartoon, quote unquote, I feel like that was almost the level of storytelling with a lot of Japanese animation stories go for. Again, appreciate Dave Filoni's masterful artwork and his storytelling. And I think he obviously learned a lot from his first, run of Clone Wars, and even with the little bit that they had when Netflix, bought the 6th season. So, and then obviously you could tell the difference in the 7th final season here with Clone Wars from the earlier days of Clone Wars. It still feels Clone Wars. Not like it didn't leave that, as we talked about, but I still see a difference in growth from early Dave Filoni till now.
Yeah, and we say these are cartoons, and they are. They're CGI animated material, but that is just a medium. The medium doesn't determine the sophistication of the story. So people will look down on these shows because they are cartoons, but there's no need for that. Look at what's actually in these stories.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like we talked about, some of the best characters have been from the animation show. I mean, Ahsoka Tano is probably up there in my top 5 of all time, and she's a complete animated character. Same thing with Sabine Wren, complete animated character. Yet I would love for them to do a live action version. Again, just do it right, but don't throw anyone in it. So I'll be very curious how Rosario Dawson, ends up showing up on live screen, because again, I think she's very pretty. So and she's a great actress. So we'll see how they are able to translate that. And I do have faith in Favreau and Filoni that they'll do it justice, right? Especially since it is Filoni's baby, as Ahsoka is. So I do have faith in him. So
yeah, and Filoni has a long history of making animated shows that are sophisticated enough for adults to enjoy. He worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, which ran from 2005 to 2008 prior to the Clone Wars. And, that show is, again, it's aimed for kids, but it's got some really interesting storytelling that appeals to adults as well.
I have some adult friends that say it's the best animated show ever.
It's
so
it's definitely in my top 5. It's up there with Clone Wars, Batman the Animated Series, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Those are probably my top 3.
Yeah, you always got to throw in Batman the Animated Series. So
always.
That one was ahead of its time. So, and speaking of, it's got a link because Mark Hamill voices the Joker.
Yes, it does. Yep.
So we could talk about it.
That's right.
So I'm sure eventually Disney will just buy Warner Brothers anyways, and then it'll all be under one banner. So
I'm sure. Yeah.
At some point, Disney will own it all. So, but I'm definitely, for me, I agree with you. I mean, I've talked about it. I'm okay with what they've done with starting to recast the original crew, because at this point in time, I'd rather have, again, as long as you have the right story and the right people behind it to support it, but you can take some of these young upcoming actors and actresses that, again, it's very scary how uncanny the resemblance is to a young Carrie Fisher or Mark Hamill or again, Aaron and Harrison, they're not 100%, obviously, but they do have a lot of similarities in their facial features. So I thought, again, he's a great actor, very underappreciated, and I thought he did a great job with Solo, especially with what they had to do in basically 2 different stories, and what Ron Howard had to do in his directing capabilities and when they went to production with it. So again, let's do it. I mean, us people that are fans that love the OG stuff, we're willing to give you the money. I just don't understand why they're not making it fast enough. I mean, I understand right now these past 6 months, COVID has prohibited some stuff, but to me, it's like, I'll throw my money at you. Don't you want it? I mean, let's be honest. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is spitting out almost 3 to 4 movies a year. So, again, I understand I don't want that much with Star Wars, but give me the TV series or the streaming series at this point, because that'll soak up.
Yeah, and as long as they're putting things in different time periods, making the stories different, that's part of the reason that Marvel can spit out 3 to 4 movies in a year. they're all different movies, even though they're all comic book movies.
Well, and they
Comic
all
book is
intertwine at
never-
some point, but you're right. They're absolutely 100% different characters, right?
Yeah. Well, and it used to be that comic book was the genre that, if you were making a comic book movie, it was labeled a comic book movie. But now it's more of a descriptor to where you can have a comic book action movie, you can have a comic book heist movie, like Ant-Man was more of a heist movie, even though it was comic book based. And you could do the same thing with Star Wars. You could absolutely make a Star Wars heist movie. That's really what I was expecting Solo to be.
It was in some aspects.
It was in some aspects. Judging just from the trailer, I thought the heist was going to be the train. that it was basically going to be the train job from Firefly.
Gotcha. Yeah.
In movie form.
Well, we get the heist in The Mandalorian. It's only 20-some or 30 minutes long, but we do get that.
That's true. That's true. So, Star Wars, I think, is at kind of the same point where it's more of a descriptor than a genre unto itself, because you can make all sorts of types of movies within Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have to say that would be my number one. Well, and again, it's so hard with the movies because I've been for the longest time a huge believer that Star Wars needed to be a series. I think that's where it shines the best. Even prior to The Mandalorian and it being so successful, I think that's where it really mostly, again, the Star Wars has such a rich history with its mythology and everything that you really need time to develop characters, right? It's so hard. Rogue One is good, but I think what makes Rogue One better is that we have A New Hope, right? So we kind of understand it a little bit more. And then we have, Rebels, that was up to that point as well too. That really helps, give it a little bit more detail where I watch this stuff enough that I don't want to say religiously, but I watch it enough and I keep up with it that it all intertwines. And I think, again, that's why I could appreciate Rogue One more than just an average Joe just going to watch the movie in itself. Right. Or I think that's where a lot of people didn't like Rogue One, or those that only see the movies. Right. If you watch the series, you can appreciate it more. Right. And I think that's where I'm most excited. We talked earlier with Cassian Andor. I'm going to get that information about Cassian, that character that I thought was very intriguing, and now I'm going to get more information about him. If it was a character that I just didn't care about, that was some guy in the back corner, again, the right writer and the right person can make it a great series, but I wouldn't have cared, right? Like if it was going to be something, I don't know, let's say you just took from the movie the Phantom Menace and you're going to do something more on the Gungans. Like, I hate the Gungans. Like, I know our ship's called the Drunken Gungan, but that's because it's more fun than anything. But if it was going to be like on the general that, or early Boss Nass, like, okay, I'll watch it if it's got Brian Blessing voicing him again. But outside of that, I probably wouldn't, right? So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, as you pointed out, this is where having a series instead of movies can really help out, because there were Clone Wars episodes that focused on the Gungans and did a good job of handling them. But if you particularly don't like Gungans, you can skip those and go on to other stories within even the same season. Won't deal with the Gungans. Yeah.
Well, and that's again what makes Star Wars Clone Wars so great, was that they had arcs, right? They didn't have just 30 minutes or 22 minutes, that's 22, 23 minutes to tell an episode. They would take 3 or 4 episodes, which gives you like, an hour and a half to tell a story, which again could be shortened, if you look at a movie, if it was just a movie. But if you have everything else that's surrounding it over the time and adds its little bits to it, like you said, that information that builds these characters, or, you gets you a little bit more backstory, then it makes it that much more sweeter and that much more enjoyable. And, all the stuff that we talked about, what were the best Clone Wars episodes, weren't really episodes. They were all arcs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, we might say we might have a favorite episode out of that arc, but at the end of the day, some of these arcs were just, beautiful pieces of work, but just storytelling were phenomenal.
Yeah, and some of the arcs, the actual episodes are inseparable.
Yeah.
You can't say this episode was my favorite episode because it doesn't stand alone. It's got those other 3 supporting it.
Correct. Yeah, you might say, oh, that moment was good. You know, my favorite out of the arc. But like you said, it's all one big, in a sense, all one big episode.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's where I think Star Wars shines its best. Plus, the fact is, I hate movies that have a gazillion characters and don't focus or don't give anybody enough screen time. And that's why I dislike The Force Awakens so much. And what they've done with the sequel trilogy was that you had all the original cast, you had all the new cast that they want to do, which again, I understand you want to bring new people in, you want to sell new stuff, you want to bring in, new audience. But it literally, if you divide out how long the movie was and you give every main character 10 minutes and you give every subplot B character 2 minutes, that's your entire movie. Yeah. And you might get that character a little bit more if they happen to be teamed up with another character that's during their 10 minutes, right, of face screen time. And that's not enough for me. I that's why I had no feelings for Rey, no feelings for Finn or Poe or BB-8. I didn't care much for him. Now, we've talked about it. Poe interested me, from what I could gather from him. So if he would have had his own solo movie or his own series, that would have been great.
It would have. We hear that Poe is the greatest pilot in the Resistance, and he goes on this espionage mission basically to retrieve this map. But that doesn't really make sense that the pilot would be doing this until you go and watch Resistance and get some more characterization of Poe and what he's about, and the fact that he does kind of run their covert ops.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like I said, it missed the opportunity when it should have been done, right? And again, yeah, I get it. We can read the comics, we can read the novels and all that stuff. But again, I get that, but that's what makes it so hard for the movie to be successful. Right.
Yeah, you need more information than they could fit into those movies.
Yep. I mean, the only real reason we know Star Wars A New Hope did so well is because it was lightning in a bottle. Something like that never been done before, right? I mean, had it been Star Trek that did that at the movies rather than what it was doing on the TV show 10 years earlier, 15 years earlier, it would have been Star Trek. We still love Star Trek and doing it, but that would have been what, everybody clamors to for movies now is Star Trek, instead of Star Wars, would set the landscape for everything, and revolutionize the industry. So it's just so, again, Disney needs to take the time, but I think they're starting to get it. And again, they're putting the right people in place. And it's just been delayed because of COVID. So we got to wait longer and longer for all this stuff. And it's like, just give me my Star Wars.
Well, if you like the Star Wars movies, if I may transition right quick.
You're good.
Then there is a way to experience all 9 of those movies, or at least there will be, coming in spring of 2021, that I think you will find extremely fun. And I know I will find extremely fun because it is the Star Wars Lego Skywalker Saga.
Ooh.
We received a new trailer for this video game this week, and it is covering the entirety of the saga, all 9 movies. There are scenes in the trailer from each of the movies, so we know they're covering all 9 of them. And based on the trailer, it looks like they're continuing in the very fun Lego style that they've always had for these games. Funny moments that don't quite line up with what happened in the movies, but they're funny because Lego
makes it funny.
Yeah, Lego makes it funny. We see Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back causing Lego pieces to hover around him instead of rocks. That sort of thing. So
yeah, it brings that childhood charm to the screen.
Yeah. One of my favorite bits was right at the end of the trailer when in Return of the Jedi, the Emperor is about to get Luke. Luke says, "No, I am a Jedi like my father before me." The Emperor says, "So be it, Jedi." And instead of just shooting lightning from his fingertips, he reaches back behind him and pulls out Lego lightning and just starts making the sound effect with his own voice. When it doesn't do anything because it's just Lego.
Yes.
Forget it. Throws one of them at Luke.
There you go. So
It was great.
yeah, no, that's
Awesome.
definitely one of the appeal. So well, and I'm wondering, do you think they're going to use some of the old stuff from episodes 1 through 6? That obviously the complete saga. Yet it wasn't the complete saga now because you've got the new 3 movies to add to it.
The previously complete saga, now incomplete.
Yes.
Most likely. If I recall correctly, the complete saga basically was an amalgamation of the 2 previous games that covered the original trilogy and the prequels put together to get the complete saga. So I'm sure they're going to take some things from there. Plus, I mean, it's covering some of the same storylines. 6 of the movies.
Yeah, you can only redo it so many times, right?
Yeah. But some of it looked different too. That scene that I mentioned with Palpatine trying to shoot lightning at Luke, I don't recall it happening that way in the complete saga.
Yeah, I mean, definitely they could, because it's the same thing like Robot Chicken's done, right? They've redone so many different, almost the same scene, but redone it to a different comedy because somebody comes up with some other spoof or funny tidbit for it. So, yeah, why not, right? I mean, that's what you pay these people to develop the stuff. If they got another joke to do, that one might hit differently than the previous joke. So good.
And now there's a whole nother trilogy of movies that you can pull references into the other 6 movies, because some of the funniest parts are when something shows up in the wrong movie.
Yes. Well, the Mandalorian with Baby Yoda is going to have to show up.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, even if they just make it a downloadable, playable character at some point,
I'm sure they will.
But
if they don't, they are just leaving money on the table.
Yes, again, take my money.
Shut up and take my money.
Maybe Fry from Futurama makes an appearance, right? So.
Oh no, not till Disney buys Futurama.
So, well, they did. It's all
They
owned
did.
by Fox.
Oh, I did not realize that was owned by Fox. Never mind. Yes.
So.
Oh, yeah. That means that we can absolutely.
Yeah,
have
they own
Futurama
King of the
references.
Hill. They own Futurama. So.
Oh, that means Bender could.
They
show
own
up.
Simpsons, all that stuff. Yeah. So, because that was the same people who did all that. So, yeah.
Well, I guess there's only one way to find out.
So,
Purchase the game in spring of 2021.
There you
Or
go.
wait till somebody posts it on the internet, but that's less fun.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, at least for this stuff that we enjoy too, the other media outlets that, like you said, people can still do it from home. They might not be able to go into the office where you had zillions of people clamored on their computers, but they can still do it from home. So, that stuff still gets done. So that's a good thing, right? So, because we know, I'm really interested to see what they're going to do next with, Disney's going to release their movies because they just next week is supposed to be their first go crack with Mulan. Going to be a extra premium service through Disney Plus, but it's going to be video on demand. And this past yesterday, actually the 28th, the new Bill and Ted, which the guys over at Culture Clash did a live recording on their viewing of it. So check that out, folks, when you listen to this, if you didn't catch that. And actually, I just told my wife, that tomorrow she gets off an hour early from work. So I said after I cook dinner, we'll do that. So I'm excited. I mean, I don't want to pay $30, but at the same time, I'm like, well, what else am I doing with my $30? And
well,
I mean, go ahead.
I'm going to go buy Star Wars Legion stuff with that $30.
That's true.
Because the ARC Troopers officially released yesterday. My local game store did not get them in, but they are on order and are supposed to arrive next week. And I'll be at the game store knocking on the door to pick them up as soon as they get them in.
That was the Mandos came out too, didn't they? Or is that next month?
No, that is next month.
Okay.
The ARC Troopers and the VX series.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, because it would be the Grand Republic and the Separatists. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next month, the Mandalorian Resistance and Inferno Squad.
Yeah,
are coming out. Which I'm getting Inferno Squad. I'm on the fence about the Mandalorian Resistance. I don't play the Rebels all that often.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely picking up a couple of Inferno Squad. Not that I actually know much about Inferno Squad themselves, but
that's what you need to get Battlefront 2 for, right? Or at least watch the YouTube stuff, like you said, when people strip it. Take all the cinematic scenes. They do all the hard work, put it together for you, and then you can just watch it like a movie.
It's true. But they look like Imperial pilots anyway, so I don't have to know the specific people to
Well,
still have an
it's
interest in the
yeah. Well,
models.
it's that time period you were just asking. It's right after the Empire is collapsing, and it's the early stages of the Resistance, because there was always the rumor that Iden Burso was going to be Rey's mother. Obviously, that's not the truth, but early on, that's where people thought, oh, that might be Rey's mother, right? So,
Well, do we know that that's not the truth?
well, yeah and no. I mean, at this point, I mean, anything is still possible. Like they brought back the Emperor again, so anything is possible. But
I mean, we know that she is the Emperor's granddaughter, but if her father was the Emperor's son, whoever he married or had a child with.
yeah, the clone there. I mean, yeah, it's hard to say of what it was, what happened. So, or she could have been at least the one that was helping him escape, right? But I'm not 100% sure, but I think she dies. Spoiler alert. So
What?
I think I can't.
All right.
Don't quote me because I haven't actually paid much attention to it because I have been out of the console game business for a long time with the new stuff because it's too expensive to keep up. I'd rather just go on the mobile games. So, but all right. So, okay. Well, Nathan, I think that's it. Unless you got anything else to talk about today, brother.
Nope. I have exhausted all of my news. Next time we'll have to be sure to get Scott back. He's the professional news guy who can dig up some.
Yeah, he's our tech. He's our tech, right? He's the one who taps in and gets all that information. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to thank our listeners.
He's got better contacts at the cantina. So
Yeah, he has that calamari flan. So.
Mhm.
But yeah, we want to thank our listeners for listening to this episode. Remember to find us on social media. Hit us up with your thoughts, reviews, comments, suggestions, whatever we could do to help make this podcast more enjoyable. And remember to always respect each other's fandom. All right, Nathan, let's punch it.